I'm John Sculley. I want to welcome you to GMIC Taipei 2015. And a very special shout out to Melody Sun from GWC Taiwan for inviting me to speak at your conference today. I was the CEO of Apple for 10 years, starting in 1983 and going to 1993. And this was during the entire period where Steve Jobs was developing the first Macintosh, and we launched it in 1984, and by the time I left in 1993, the Macintosh was the largest selling hardware PC in the world. And it was all because Steve recognized that there was a design gap in an industry that had been focused on designing personal computers for technical people, for business people, engineers. And Steve said, no, I think the future of personal computing is going to be for consumers. And we have to make it really, really simple and a great experience for people who are non-technical to have really creative tools. He called them bicycles for the mind. Well, I no longer am a CEO of a company, but I'm still very active in Silicon Valley and other parts of the world as a co-founder of innovative companies. I was co-founder of Misfit Wearables, which Sunny Vu and I started back in 2011, and we just sold weeks ago. And we're very excited about Misfit because it found a design gap with a beautiful fashion design combined with low power technology. So it differentiated in a commodity industry and has been a successful company. I'm also the co-founder, not the CEO, but the co-founder of a company called Obi Worldphone. Now, why would we go into the large commoditized smartphone industry at a time when many companies are hemorrhaging hundreds of millions of dollars of loss? And the reason is that you can still go into a commodity industry and through a design-led philosophy, as many of us who used to work at Apple learned, you can differentiate with design. And you can find a price point. In the case of Obi Worldphones, we're focused at a very different part of the market than most other international brands. And we are down in that $100 to $150 price range with what we believe are really terrifically designed products. And they take advantage of our relationships that we've had for many years with some of the most successful component vendors in the world and some great software talent. The big lesson I learned working with Steve Jobs back in those early days in Silicon Valley was what Steve called zooming. We used to walk through the Stanford Hills together up above Silicon Valley. And Steve said, we've got to zoom out. We've got to zoom out and connect the dots. And that's exactly what he did when he created desktop publishing. He fell in love with beautiful fonts when he was going to Reed College. He was inspired when he went to Xerox Palo Alto Research Center to see the work that they were doing on engineering workstations that were going to sell for $60,000 or $70,000 for engineers, but they used a graphical user interface. He was really amazed at the work that Adobe was doing with beautiful fonts with a technology called PostScript and what could be done possibly with laser printing that was still not even on the market yet. So Steve connected the dots between those ideas, and through his demanding focus on design with no compromises, he not only zoomed out to connect the dots, but he also said, we got to zoom in and simplify. So zooming was about simplification, particularly around the user experience. So Apple has always said, how do we do things in less steps? They focus on the user experience. They really are thinking of themselves as a design company. They are design-led, but they're also a marketing company. And they are an incredible supply chain company under the leadership of Tim Cook. So it's understandable why Apple is the highest valued company in the world. But there are lessons that we can take for the rest of us as we look at other opportunities to innovate. And one of the things that I think that a Steve Jobs would be doing today if he were alive, he would be looking at, so what comes next after the smartphone as a mobile device? And how do you apply those same insights of zoom out, connect the dots, and then zoom in and simplify? And let me give you an example of a market that I think Steve would love, and that would be the automotive market. Because automobiles are really computers on wheels. And people spend hours a day inside of the automobile. So the things that you've got to solve from a customer standpoint Or how do you let someone interface with technology when they're behind the steering wheel of a car? They obviously shouldn't be texting. They can't be looking at screens. We know that there's a lot of innovation going on today with natural language as a user interface. It may someday even replace the browser. We know that there's a lot of work going on with machine learning. For over 30 years, the high-tech industry has been focused on really a single mission, and that has been, how do you create productivity tools for knowledge workers? It didn't make any difference what part of the value chain you were in, whether you were in hardware and chips or product design, whether you were in software, whether you were in services. It's always been about how do you build better and better productivity tools. Well, now we're kind of at a moment where everything is changing, and we may well see a shift, not just to better and better tools, but we may see a shift towards assistants who can take over work because machines are able to learn. Because of cloud computing, an incredible amount of data can be processed, and we can use predictive analytics to be able to anticipate and add rule sets and be able to use pattern matching and other technologies to be able to make machines smart. And the smart machines may actually be largely up in the cloud. And so the mobile device, whether it's in the car or whether it's in the hand or on the wrist, may well be doing a lot of the machine learning processing in the cloud, not in the device itself. So now think about the automotive market. You know, why shouldn't there be an entirely new industry with entirely new types of experience where you're able to communicate without having to text, where you're able to look to the smart assistant? I used to call it a personal digital assistant back in the days we were developing Newton. And how can we build those types of capabilities to become as mainstream as we think of small screens and gestures that we have on smartphones today? So my message to you at GMIC Taipei 2015 is there's a lot of opportunity for innovation. A lot of it is going to come from not just Silicon Valley, but other parts of the world as well. We all have to work together. It's a global industry, and therefore, some people will be in the component business, some in the software, some will be in services, some will be in devices. There are all kinds of ways in which you can participate in innovation, and that's what makes this such an exciting time. So I'm very optimistic. Don't get discouraged because you see industries commoditizing. Actually, the commoditizing of one generation of technology only opens up the derivative effect opportunities for the next. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing all of you next year at GMIC Beijing 2016.